recruit members and, have people check on their membership. So just stop and say hi to Pat. You don't have to become a member to participate in Nami, but, there is something in having numbers, and it also helps you to become a member because you'll be enrolled at the state level and the national level. They have very good newsletters and publications that come out, and there's a lot of advocacy, legislative work that all of us should be involved in at the state and national level, so that's where we hear a lot about it. So, any other questions for me? No? Okay. Oh, John.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I'm not on the board, I'm just a Nami member. I'm going to make a political speech. You heard about Pat Bell. Her husband is a member of Nami and is Jim Bell, state senator. What district he's in, I'm not exactly sure. It's not the district I'm in, so I can't vote for him. But he's done more for mental health on a legislative basis than most other California senators and assemblymen in the last 50 years. So if you have Jim Bell, B-E-A-L-L, on your ballot, I would encourage you to vote for him. Note, I'm speaking of this, I am not a NAMI board member, so NAMI board is not taking a stand. Okay, thank you.
We're not supposed to do
Jim
that.
Bell, B-E-A-L-L.
Yeah. And actually, he just got this year at our Nami California conference, Legislator of the Year Award. So he has really sponsored a lot of bills around mental health. He's still doing it. And he's a real champion for the people who need things, not just mental health. I see his name on other things too. Okay, so we have our guest up there, guest speaker, and I'm going to turn this over to Bev, and she'll introduce everyone.
Good evening. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce tonight's speaker. I had the pleasure of meeting Adrian Camp a few months ago, and he has quite the story to share. Currently, he's manager of Second Story Peer Respite House in Santa Cruz. But he has spent 20 years in and out of hospitalizations and various states of being, and he found strength, he found mental health, and he is a real advocate and champion. I really do call him a champion. So, my pleasure. Here's Adrian Camp.
Yeah, so my name is, my original name is Adrian Bernard, and so I don't like that name. It means bold as a bear, but that's all it really means. Like, camp is something that's my mom's maiden name, and it actually is, it serves many different functions. It's a noun, it's a verb, it's a slang term, it plays a much more multifaceted role. So I'm still wrestling with it. I'm actually thinking about just cutting out the last names altogether and just claiming the name Adrian and just being done with it at that point, so that I would just go by my first name only. By law, I guess at that point it would be something that I would do. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hi.
So we're gonna have some fun for the next hour or so. Well, sort of fun. It's gonna be talking about the breakdowns and the triumphs and the tragedies and all the stuff that I've walked through. This afternoon we were having an all-staff meeting today. It was the final all-staff meeting for Encompass Community Services, which is the largest nonprofit in Santa Cruz. And so we were saying farewell we're doing a reorganization anyway. So I talked a little bit about Second Story. By the end of the conversation, by the end of the conversation, when other people were talking, I was sitting quietly. I was sitting and not speaking at this time. And so then I just started I heard whispers, and so the whispers turned into something. And the person that I know says, "Oh, you were guessing when you were speaking," or I thought they said that to me, and then I thought, okay, then I really thought I wasn't really guessing, and then Another person I thought said, well, we know you really weren't guessing. And then I started getting this weird kind of, like the wind shifted, wind came through the area, and then other whispers, and there was talking, and I thought, well, this is a lot like a movie happening right now. And then, of course, as soon as I thought that, then a shift of consciousness came, and voices started speaking more openly and directly in ways that I hadn't heard them speak, and sometimes there was a clarity to their voice. So it was a little bit haunting. It was like uncomfortable that I'm like living a live movie in my brain or in my experience, my spirit, my consciousness around me. And so there it was. I was kind of in awe again, and then you could see the sun through the sky and the crows and the birds all singing. And so it was really a beautiful moment of conflict and being able to and having to feel these painful, lonely kind of spaces where no one else really understands or can understand or cares to understand. So, I started. So now I'm like Clara said, I'm a manager at Second Story, a peer respite house, and so it took me a long time to get there. I started in Atlanta, Georgia, and my mom got us out of there because of several problems. One was drugs. She had to get away from the drugs in the South in the 70s. The other thing was racism. She didn't have a stomach for the South's open racist ways and ideologies, so we got out of there for that reason. Religion was another thing that she wanted to get us away from. The South has its own way. So we got to California and moved to Sacramento. I was a pretty open kid. I'm just going to be mindful of time. So I was a pretty open kid. I would say very open. We were soft-spoken and kind, my brother and I. We got comments everywhere we went. We had daycares that were extending our stay, so I was very soft. I was very vulnerable. And it hurt. Like I had no way of understanding I was very much unconscious, so of course I have no way of conscious understanding of my process as a kid, but in looking back, I was so open to the world that little things would hurt me. Just comments. I felt like I wanted to be so free in space and time as a kid. And who doesn't want to be free as a kid? But it took little things to hurt me. People could spend time talking without me close to them. My feelings would be hurt. I would be very sensitive. People would walk away from me without acknowledging that I was in the room or whatever it would be. I would take that as a direct assault. So I was very sensitive to the world around me. So by the time I was 6 years old in California, when we left my dad back in Georgia, my dad just died about a month ago. So that was after talking at the other place. Anyway. So my dad died recently. We didn't really know him. So anyway, back in Sacramento, and I'm closing down. My babysitter and her friend molested me as a kid, and so that was pretty much a turning point. I became this gentle kid into kind of a aggressive, or not aggressive, if not just obnoxious. If not obnoxious, then just probably more in line with challenging the way that things are. Challenging the complacency of things. And I had no way of understanding that as a kid. But it got me in trouble. It got me in some trouble throughout grade school. I was still well received. By the time I was in high school, I had experienced enough slices of the world to be completely numb to everything. So I had to numb myself even more. I had to shut down with pot and alcohol and LSD. And then by 19, I was having a breakdown. I graduated from high school when my friends left. But it also shifted that quiet kid. The drugs and the alcohol shifted me into an outspoken, I was like extravagant. I was wild. I was wild and free, and so I thought that I had the tools to freedom by partying, because I was a liberated, freedom being, and I was running from person to person and talking to everybody that I could, and supercharged with energy, and so then people were surprised to hear that I was having a breakdown, that I ended up in a mental hospital, that I lost connection with everybody, that no one really knew what to do or to think. So anyway, at 20 years old, it was a wild breakdown. It wasn't as bad as the one at 25, and the one at 29 was probably even more, was as challenging. So when I was 23, I started learning that I was going to be dismembered. They were going to take off my arms and legs, my friends. They were going to, so this was a nightmare that I had to feed. For whatever reason, I was fed. So So I had this nightmare that I was going to be taken to a hospital room or to a cabin in the woods or to the forest or to the desert, and my friends would, like the times of old when we would draw and quarter people. I thought that was alive and well because of my past life crimes for things that I probably created in my mind to cope with a lot of stuff. So because of past life crimes, I was going to be dismembered in this, like thrown in a hospital bed, tortured, beaten, all, cut, all of it. It was going to happen. And so I was on my way to the hospital, thinking that my friends and family, and doctors and patients and people in the community were all just going to be cannibalizing me while I was wide awake, because my friend, who was a priest, he was a roving priest from Africa, and this was not a hallucination. Don't get it. He was a very dear friend. I became close friends with the Catholic Church, but then I also thought he was a witch doctor because he was giving me lemon, and I thought that he was that I was paralyzed for the past week and a half 2 weeks on the ground, ascending to heaven and crashing into hell and sitting under a giant devil's belly and flipping off the hand of God and having banter with Jerry Seinfeld and my friend Will and all these just various states of madness that were kind of, well, I'd say that kind of interesting. It's like, that doesn't seem like even this world. How does that even exist in this world? Anyway, so I had a breakdown. I ended up in the hospital, going to the cop car. The cop, I'm scaring out of his mind because I'm terrified. So he floors at the moment I say a couple of words, and we get to the hospital, and all bedlam breaks loose. Then Michael the Archangel is threatening to throw me into a circle in the room. They had created a room. They had created in the table, and I was around the corner, and I could hear them slamming the hammer that was opening this portal to hell. It was actually probably just a hole punch or something like that they kept doing it. But I'd look, and then of course they were taunting me, right? The people behind the desk were taunting me. They weren't giving me the opportunity to see them opening the portal to hell, but also opening, or at least doing a paper punch and getting on with it. And so I think all throughout that, I had been kicked out of my family's home. And so I couldn't see how much pain I was causing them. But they couldn't see how much pain they were causing me. And that's a real big awareness that came about 5 years ago. And the level of how much I didn't listen to them and how much they didn't listen to me. We weren't communicating, we weren't expressing our inner worlds. It was just, you must comply, and I'm just like, nope, I'm not going to comply. And so I think that the child that I shut down because of the pain that I was experiencing was breaking down the foundation that I had created, the walls that I had created for my own safety and protection. And as the walls tumbled and everything fell to the ground, then I had to rebuild. It's been a story, it's a theme for all of it, for many of the peers that I'm friends with and that I'm close to, and myself as well. Tearing down the walls and having to rebuild everything from the ground up again. Hopefully it's not on the wall, hopefully it's like it's a room where I can just chill or something, where it's not something so oppressive, it's something that keeps people out and me only in. So when I was 25, I started to, that was when I had that breakdown and got out of the hospital, and I had successfully passed the challenge that Michael the Archangel was offering me, and God and the hospital, and I'll never forget screaming. I've been screaming and terrified. I was telling Michael the Archangel to fuck off, and I was screaming, and the hospital staff comes in, and they knew me at Kaiser. I had gone to the county hospital before going to Kaiser. Is that better? Is the mic better this way?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, so as I was screaming, they came in and they picked me up and they put me on the bed, and they said, I heard this calming voice said, Adrian, we're going to give you a shot for the paralysis and a shot for something to make you sleep. And I just nodded, okay, that sounds good. As I was drifting to sleep, I was on the circle, and underneath me I could feel the fumes of hell coming up from beneath me. And I learned over time that hell is not such a bad place. It's actually anywhere that human beings dwell. We build community. It's just a more dysfunctional community, I think, in a lot of ways. That's actually been certified by another person who saw the same visions that I saw that came through Second Story, where I work now. So at 25, I started building again. I got a guitar, I got a cat. I moved into another apartment on my own, and I started reading every day. I read cultural anthropology, a textbook every hour a day, and I eventually got up to reading 5 to 12 hours a night for years. School, the same thing. When I finally started going to school, I took 1 class, then I took 2, then I took 3, then I took 4, then I took 5, and then I moved to Santa Cruz to get my BA. So and then school would consume me. I would be studying all the time, and it wasn't a bad thing. It was just what I did. It's how I worked. I had to do everything to the best of my ability. And so I moved to Santa Cruz, and I continued to have another breakdown at 29 or something like that. And it's when voices came in. It's when there was a loudness. And so they would sing to me. And there's actually a video about it online. You might want to check it out. I don't really talk about it in groups too much, but it's actually a pretty good explanation that I can't get into right now of all of it, but I can describe. So I had found myself in another corner, and I lived in this little tiny mobile home, and it was a perfect place for 8 years. It was good for me. I was going to school, and at 29 I had another breakdown. I just want to make a note too of the times that I had my most distress was 19 and 25 and 29. And I make that point because those are actual rites of passage in all of our experience, or this as a community's experience. At 19 is when we go to school, we go out and get a job. At 25 we start moving towards career. At 29 we're getting, that's when Saturn comes around. And astrological perspective is the planet Saturn comes around in everybody's life at 28 or 29. I'm not the greatest astrologer, and I don't really necessarily believe in that, but it's always fun. So at 29, then it becomes the life path, and what am I going to do now? And so at these times, I couldn't process it in a way that it said, okay, I'm gonna go get a job, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna make a career. I couldn't do it that way. I couldn't follow the streamline that this community expects of all of us, and to some degree. So I always felt it was liberation. I always felt that it was about a freedom of soul, a freedom of people, of a collective. And so that's what I became hungry for. And for a long while it was God, and it was to understand that nature and to give myself over to a higher consciousness or a higher something. I understand it differently now. Now I kind of think of it as just this presence, just being in presence with people and within myself. And I feel like that's where my greatest freedom is these days. Without all the thinking, without all the process and the conceptual kind of paradigms that we can trap ourselves with. So now I graduated from school after that breakdown, and it was a couple of quarters later, and I took 33 years old. I took a road trip around the United States in my truck, and I slept. And it was on the road for 2 months, 2 months and a week, and I stayed with my family for a month, and I think a week or just a month. And I was on the road by myself for another month, and I came back. There was a shift, a deep shift in the way that I processed myself and my surroundings, and the way that I embodied myself in the world. And so consciousness started to flower. So I graduated from school. I got a degree in history. I studied Indian history with an emphasis on India because my teacher and his family took me in. I also double majored and I got a cultural anthropology degree because one, I love the history of people, and I like knowing where we come from, and two, how is it we got here. So anyway, so that's kind of the story. But then I graduated, and then I kind of started art. I started doing art and other things, and then I also began. I got kind of discovered by a friend who's in Nami, and she introduced me to Clara Williamson, who's the Nami president, and I got trained with everything that there is in Nami. I did, at least there was. I've been too busy now to be able to get too much time. So I teach the provider training class right now, and it's really fun. I've taught just about everything. I taught everything that a peer can teach it and within this organization, and I'm really grateful for it because Nami's also allowed me be able to speak like this. I've been mute forever, and so the past 5 years I've been starting to talk. And so I then started working second story, but I'm going to pause before I start working the second story. Are there any questions? We've got time for questions right now, and I'm going to break it up so it's not just me talking for 45 minutes, but if you guys have questions, that would be great. If you don't, I can keep going. Yes?
Are we finding this YouTube video you're talking about, Voices Seen, you're 29?
It was, it's on Mental Health Matters. It's on YouTube. Just type in Mental Health Matters, Hearing Voices, and you'll see me there. I'm wearing a green shirt. It's, I don't know if it types my name or not, I'm not sure, but I just know it was up in Alameda County. It's a 29-minute video. They had a TV show, and I was asked to go up to Alameda County to be able to speak about the voices that I hear. Spirits, I call them, but they are voices. There's a...
Yeah, when are you most peaceful?
I think I'm pretty constant. I think I'm pretty much, like, even in the midst of hell, I'm like, there's a level of calm. I guess the question, so when I'm most peaceful,
So what you're saying is that as you go through the day and things happen and as energy increases and decreases, you are at the point where you're feeling very kind of steady.
yes, I think though that the times that I'm not, I'm always, there's always evenness to me. I'm always pretty steady, pretty balanced, very peaceful all the time. And like I said, even if I'm feeling attacked, even voices or friends or whoever, I'm feeling attacked now, there's always a calm about me. And sometimes I can get wound up in my energy if I'm not breathing. If I'm not taking care of my self-care, then I'm more susceptible to the dysfunction of my own mind and the ways of, and so I can describe more when I'm not peaceful is when I'm not operating under a self-care system of my own, whether it's art, music, exercise. I mean, I can say sleep is number one, exercise number two, food number three, and the rest of it works itself out. But I'm usually, no, I mean, even if I'm in the hospital, like, I was having a very difficult time in North Carolina, getting back from North Carolina one day, and I was in the airport, and I was thinking they were conspiring to keep me off that plane. There happened to be a teacup conference or something like that was blocking at the airport. And so I thought they were planning to ship me off to the hospital. So I called my mom and I said, how am I going to get out of here? Because it was a buddy pass from my uncle. So she said, call grandparents who I was staying with. I called the grandparents, were trying to figure out, I called back my mom, and I said, hello, this is the North Carolina Police Department. Adrian has been hospitalized. And so she's like, and I'm start laughing. And literally, my mind is like, I'm having a very tough time. But I'm still able to make a joke about it. I don't take it so seriously these days that it's like, there's always some kind of absurdity in any of it, that there's always an evenness to it.
Your story is great. I really enjoy every word you say. I think you're amazing. You have I feel like when you say the story, almost you're on the outside with the inside. You know, you were able to communicate with us, or you know, I mean, you can share your experience, because I have a loved one also have a similar life challenge like you, and sometimes I think it's hard for me to understand, and it's also sometimes very hard for me to explain it to us. You know, I think what I really admire you, I think maybe it's years experience with the living experience. Now you can say your experience and also in a very connected way, you know. But like, you know, you're looking for now you'll help us from outside and inside. Could I please know, are you always, ever since you were diagnosed like 19 years old, are you always compliant with your medication treatment? Have you been off the medicine, and do you recommend people to stay on medicine? And thank you.
Well, first, outside in is I definitely, I've learned that the past is only part of who I am. It's not, the past is, you know, my life story is an aspect of me, but even going back to it, it's only a reflection. It's not, so so it's creating something in the moment now of where I've been, so so I am sort of just an observer to it in a lot of ways. So with medication, when I was 20 years old, I was able to get off medication for 8 months or so, and then I started smoking pot again with friends who came back around, and didn't work so well. They ended me back up in the hospital, having a tough time getting back on medications. I didn't work well with medication until I was 25 years old. But that 8 or 9 months, I was actually doing really well off medications. The doctor even didn't want to put me back on them, but my mom was really insistent at that time. She was if I was going to stay at home, I had to be on medication. There was no way around it. So we struggled until I was gone from home. At 25, I was off. Until 25, I was off and on. I wasn't really consistent with it. I was also partying still. I would smoke pot, I would drink alcohol, cigarettes, caffeine, and then at 25 I collapsed again. And then when I got out of the hospital, that time I determined I can't drink and I can't smoke pot. And I determined it because it was not. I was receiving Social Security at the time, and so I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to. I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to use money that was given to me as a benefit for drugs and alcohol. And so there was more of an ethical decision. And then and the second part of that was then at 25, for a good long while, I would before going to bed, before taking my medication, I would say, this is my friend. This is going to help me. And so I made friends and peace with medications. I realized that I believed that they were necessary for me at the time. So, that was 20 milligrams of Zyprexa, and then over the past, until now, it's been until almost 20 years now. I've been on Zyprexa and lowering it for a good long while. So now I'm currently at 5 milligrams, and also I take homeopathy now, which has been, it's probably reduced my symptoms 60 to 65%, almost gone at times, where I feel normal again. So homeopathy is a more natural remedy to healing the whole person, the whole body. So it's something that also is helping me. My homeopath says that I will be able to go off medications, but when I have no symptoms at all, and I'm still not at no symptoms at all. Yes.
Yeah, what is that? What'd you say?
Homeopathy.
Yeah, what is that?
I don't know the best way. It's a natural medicine. It's a natural healing. In the 1850s, there were people there was a psychiatrist that went into the asylums in Germany and said, this is inhumane, we can't do this to people, chaining people to walls, putting people in Iron Maidens, that kind of thing. So he found homeopathy and began to treat people in the asylums and liberating people from the asylums back then. And without getting into too much of the detail, it's just a natural remedy that heals the whole person.
Natural remedy?
That's what
Natural remedy heals the whole person?
heals the whole person.
Heals the whole person.
Heals the whole person, yeah.
But you have to see the doctor for that medicine, right? It's not like you self-medicate. You cannot get it from the drugstore.
You can get it from the drugstore. It just won't help much if not knowing what we're doing, then we wouldn't work then. No, but you can, but then you have to do research. So that's why I go to the homeopath, and he's helped me a lot as well. So.
What other coping skills have you learned to use in dealing with your voices?
So voices, so I hear negative voices quite a bit, and they're on this level. Like even tonight, it's mostly comes from people. Like if I hear somebody say something, I hear shift in my mind, it shifts in their mind, and I believe it shifts in their mind. So when the good voices are awesome, I have no complaints. They gave me great advice the other day. It was pretty incredible. I was in Florence, Oregon. I spoke up at a couple of places in Oregon last week, and so on the way home, I lost my phone. Anyway, that wasn't the question you asked. So I'll continue the story.
Interesting.
Okay, so I was in a state of shock. I was like, I lost my phone. You would not believe it. You lose your phone, it feels like a little child has been lost. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I was like emotional. I was feeling like crying because my freaking phone is gone. So then I drove out of Florence and for a half hour because I was still like disoriented. And so I came back. I stayed overnight in a hotel, and then in the morning it was 4:30. I couldn't sleep because people were arguing and fighting out in the parking lot. And so I get up and I might as well start driving. And so but I get up and I think I can go back to Florence and look in the road because I could have sworn I heard the phone ring. They found the phone, by the way. I had to get a new one though, but anyway, so dilemma. So I woke up and I was getting ready to go back to Florence to see if I could find it anywhere. And the voices, the spirits, they said, no, if you go back and it's not there, it's just gonna be a stolen phone at that point, and that's worse than going back. That's worse. Spending the time to go back and not finding it is worse than just heading home and trusting that the best will work out. And so it was really sound advice. I said, great, thank you. I jumped in the car and started driving. It took me 16 hours to get home. Yes, on Sunday, but it was worth it. The road was pretty incredible. And the forest and the ocean was pretty incredible. The question though was voices, and how do I deal with the negative ones? I find that, so it's not so much the negative things that they say. It's my reaction to them. If a voice gets into my mind, it's because I'm either tired or hungry or haven't slept, haven't eaten, haven't exercised, haven't done art, haven't spent time with friends, haven't done all the things that I normally do. If I'm not doing those things, and people say something, either people say something negative to me, if I hear voices that are saying things negative to me, then I immediately will, and I'll internalize and I'll start running with it. And little things become much bigger and bigger problems. If I don't corral it and do the things that I have to, if I'm spinning on the things that voices or spirits are saying to me, the surest way to get out of it is to either find a way to get to sleep, make sure I'm eating food, making sure I'm exercising. Those are the three staples for my physical manifestation for me to be able to keep, and then almost immediately the voices will soften, the things will get less intense. If I'm doing those three things, and the other stuff is more extracurricular, friends and art and other things that help me. So that's the way that I get through it. So but again, it's not that the negative things are so damaging. It's that I spin on it and I don't let it go and I can't get separate from it. And so that's when it becomes a problem. And so I just go through the I literally, if I'm having a tough time at any time, I go through my self-care checklist and then find I'm not doing one or two things and I'm often in trouble. And so that's generally the way that I get back to the balance. Is there one more question before we go? Yes.
Do you have looking back in your 20s, do you have something you wish your family had done?
So I don't think it's something that my family could have done as much as we could have done together. And so I think that we didn't communicate because we were still too young as a family. I had brothers and sister. I had brothers and a sister and a mom. And my dad had left when I had my first breakdown. He met somebody and bailed on our family. Stepdad actually for me and my brothers then. So then. So I think it probably would have been more helpful if we had talked instead of gone through power struggles. If we'd been able to, if they had learned ways of communicating, because I was ill-equipped to be able to have any kind of conversation or be any kind of narrative or any kind of control of my own thought processes. It would help if they could have reached out to organizations like Nami or if I could. And my family did great. I mean, I think they did great. They offered love, they offered support. My uncles were there for me, each one of them. My brothers and sisters, they didn't treat me like I was mentally ill. So I had it pretty relatively easy in that sense. That said, I was causing them pain, they were causing me pain. So if I could make a wish list for anything right now, it would probably be that we would probably have more of an open dialogue, a way of understanding what it is that actually is happening. Like, not what's happening to me from a illness standpoint, but from a standpoint of what's happening in a relationship and just delving into more of core issues of self-insult that I was sort of requesting by going through what I was going through. I just had no way of putting it in a concrete form. And so I wish that we had more, I wish that our society, our communities had a more sustainable communication methodology so that we could actually delve into some of these deeper issues of trust and fear and terror and hope and grandiosity and all of these things that we can just have a way to wrestle that out. And I didn't have that as a kid, and probably would have moved me along a lot faster if I had somebody to talk to about that. And them. I mean, if they could have received therapy or support as well, because they're also floundering, and I don't think that we realize just how my family did not realize how we were impacting each other. So I think that if there's a way to understand what it is that we're going through on a soul level or on a human level or a familial level, so that we're working together towards something bigger than ourselves, I think that's where I would wish I could have gone. Didn't go. Couldn't.
So, what's your relationship with your family like now?
Strange. Well, after that road trip, it seems like cousins have it's strange. I mean, so I'm good friends with my mom. We're close. We're pals. She actually, when I was up in Oregon, she came down to sit at my place and in Santa Cruz and watch the cats. She's up in Sacramento. My brother did last time. He came down last time I was out of town. We're close. We've been close for almost a decade now. Since that road trip, it felt like the road trip really opened me up in a new kind of way. So I was able to articulate what's going on. Like I said, if I was 19 years old, that's what I would have wished for. I got it when I was 33. So it's like it just took my own development as a person, through consciousness or whatever we want to call this state of being. So I'm actually good friends with all of them. And cousins, uncles. I don't want to say I'm like the hero of the family because I've kind of stepped into that role somehow because of the terror that I faced. I think that people see the suffering and they've responded to it in a way that they honor it now. And they didn't really treat me like I was sick, I don't think. But they did. They definitely were. They definitely not treat me with great respect, and partly because I treat with them with great respect as well. So it's mutual. So shall we go to the second story now, or do you guys want to have any other questions, or shall we go to the second story?
Second story.
Okay. So the second story, I started working with Nami in the second story at the same time, and so I started with 2 shifts. And then moved to 3, then 4, then became supervisor, then manager, then 5 shifts, and now I work full-time probably more than 40 hours a week, probably too much, but I make sure that I slow it down as best I can. So the second story is, I've been there since the beginning. We started with a client group, a client core was the name of our organization. It was an advisory board. It was a peer activist group. It was that was built to form and be an advisory body to the Second Story program. So Second Story, for people who don't know, it's a peer respite house, which means that everybody who works there has gone through the system themselves, or at least gone through great suffering themselves, or has gone through a lot of. It's good to see you guys again. Okay. And so it's a peer-run organization, which means that we all have been through the system, gone through great suffering. It's the only way you can get hired for the house. We got a 5-year SAMHSA grant, which they offered as a part of their transformational grant system. They gave a lot of grants to a lot of programs across the nation in the spirit of transformation. So we started it in 2011. We opened in 2011. The client core started in 2010. So we started to build the house, and so it was basically we had a research component with it, and so we had a 5-year research grant. So we were then able to we had peer data collectors. We just wrote an article about it, and so about the peer data collectors aspect of it. And so then we also we were brought in with Encompass Community Services, which is the largest nonprofit in Santa Cruz. It's the mental health system essentially. So as part of Encompass, we were brought within the system to transform the system itself. So the work that we did was built and designed to enhance the system. So we've had a number of people that have gone through the program that have worked within Encompass itself. We've had a number of people that have shifted jobs to other areas. We've had people that have moved out of state to work in other places too. So it's also a training ground for people to come into our program and then to be able to advance in their careers. So it's really kind of a noble space in that sense too. So when we started with the client core, it was dysfunctional. It was very dysfunctional. We had peers who had been silenced all of us were silenced for our entire lives essentially. This is one theory of why we were so dysfunctional. So we were at odds with each other because we all wanted to be heard. We'd spend 20 minutes talking about, like if I said something, someone would have a different reaction, so virulent, so against it, that they would spend 5 minutes talking about it, another person would spend 5 minutes talking about it, and what they were talking about, and we were just getting this never-ending hellish cycle. And so it was not any fun. But then when the house finally opened, we jumped into the house environment. And so what we did was then we started working. Many of us were on Social Security, many of us were new to work, including myself. And several people determined that they would hopefully not continue to, but they determined to reenact the way the system is perceived as operating at times, with force, with aggression, with domination, with all of these things that are not so appealing to experience. Several of us were fighting it out in that environment. And so I was kind of one with the ethical shield, and I was like saying, nope, this is not going to happen. We are going to stand up to this. And I had a couple other people that we were a team, basically within the team, and it was warfare. It was not easy because we were trying to protect the people that were coming through the program. We were trying to protect people to be in a safe space, to be able to open, to be able to identify as somebody going through their recovery journey and being in a safe place to do so. And if you're attacking people, it's not going to work so well. There's no chance to be able to divulge conversations. And like I felt like every time I came into work, I would have to give emotional support. I would have to find a way to like, what happened over the weekend, what happened when I wasn't here, and then other people were having the same similar load. So we were at the same time as this dysfunction was happening, we were building the program. We were trying to create an environment where people could thrive again, and people could come in. Our program is built on relationship. It's a model based on it's called intentional peer support, which is something that we were all trained 5 days in. So this is something that the peers have organized and created. It's now a very strong organization that continues to grow and get training at almost all of the respite houses. People are getting intentional peer support training. So this was a way. It's basically an efficient communication model. And so we would, and it kind of has its deficits too, because some people would use additional peer support to behave badly, and sometimes it would not serve the purposes of good. Sometimes it would serve justify people treating people the way that they wanted to. We eventually worked it out. Over time, we made sure that as people were stepping up and showing belligerence or showing whatever they wanted to show, we made sure that to document and go through the system process of writing things up and making sure that, and people over time started to lead the program. And so we've now, in the last little bit, we've actually developed a very strong community. So people come into our program now, and almost the first reaction is like relief. First reaction is, okay, I'm in a respite house now, it's time to get the lay of the land, see where we're at. And so then people will start to acclimate, start to get more connected, and feel like immediately, not the judgment, not the assessment, not the mentally ill, not the medication. And so we don't have any of these kind of conversations with people unless people are asking for these kind of conversations. But a diagnosis is far from what we offer. We offer relationships and a chance for people to see themselves in a new light, to see that they can go back to work or go back to school. Not everybody does. A lot of people are mired in meth use or in drug use or alcohol or whatever it may be, coming in, still getting relief, oftentimes at the expense of everybody else, but we have ways of working around it. So then I would say that people find community. We had somebody that has been in the system for 30 years, and I said to her a couple of weeks ago, I said, did you feel like you were a patient before you discovered Second Story? And she said, yeah, I did. And I said, do you feel like a patient now? And she said, no, I don't. And so it was just this beautiful conversation about finding the human being through dialogue, finding the person that has been smothered by society. I don't want to say the system, because I think that the system is doing good work, I believe, as our families, and I think that it goes back to how do we become more united from this I don't want to know what the right word is, this havoc, this destruction that we so embody and so feel. And what a gift that is too, to really to own that too, to be able to be destruction embodied and personified, whatever we want to call it. We can be these things. We can also be light too. We can be the greatest light as well. And so that's another beautiful aspect of the agony that we experience as peers and as family members, because you guys are with us. And as providers too, and providers do care, and I see that constantly. But what Second Story has offered is a chance to be a bridge, to be able to create an environment where providers can come in and actually draw support from us too, and see how it's done. We've actually gone through a training practice with coordinators, and we actually are teaching them ways of approaching people. It's tough, and there's a lot of resistance to it, because we're so goes back to what we were built for, transforming the mental health system. And so, and we take it a step further, we're transforming the community. Right now we're working with an Encompass, and an Encompass is now going to start looking at how peers can be more involved. Not only have we, like I said, we've had peers come into our program, get other jobs, full-time jobs throughout Encompass. The idea is that we have a volunteer academy. We're trying to build a volunteer academy so that people can get work skills, and then we would plug them into the system itself. So this is another aspect of how we're trying to transform the way that things operate, in the way they don't have to operate. And so like I said, we coordinators, at least 4 coordinators have said to me, going to Second Story is the best part of their day, because people feel like they're free to choose. So it's a 2-week stay. It's up to 2 weeks. You can stay only at Second Story if you're a part of the system of care of Santa Cruz County. You can stay up longer if you can stay 2 more weeks if you're part of transition age group. Because when we work with the younger folks, then they're able to they take to it more quickly. They no longer see themselves immediately as broken, as sick, as ill, or these things. They see themselves as struggling through the dilemmas of what brings them to our community. So also then can't be on the sex offender list. That's another thing that we don't accept. You have to be 18 years old. There's probably questions that you guys might have about how we operate and procedurally. I can give a brief overview. We don't really have a lot of rules. We don't have any rules. We have very few rules other than what Encompass has. We have guidelines which kind of pose as rules. They're like a lesser form of rules, but it tends to work. So we have, people. There's not a curfew. Drugs and alcohol, we believe in a harm reduction model. So it means that if people go out and use, you drink alcohol, adults drink alcohol, you can smoke pot. It's legal to smoke pot for some strange reason in California. In most places, it's coming back. And so methamphetamines, that's another one. If somebody comes in as like normal for a while, then they go out and use meth, and they come back and they're looking like they're in bipolar disorder or whatever they want to call it, that state of high energy. They sleep all day. We're going to have a conversation with the person. Hey, this looks pretty. We've seen a pattern here with other folks in the house. We just have we try to have a conversation. When things get difficult, it's a constant struggle to be able to. We'll go to questions in like 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
You want questions now?
No, I'm saying 2 minutes.
2 minutes. So it's got to be a good finale. Okay. So we're built on dialogue. We have uncomfortable conversations with people in the room. It's a constant struggle to maintain that we've got to maintain that. It can't be have conversation with somebody sometimes, but we've really got to, we focus on all the stuff that happened to us in the system. We don't want to reinforce, we don't want to create it. We're constantly reflective of how that's playing out in our work. So conversations we have to have with people in the room. If somebody, we're thinking about kicking them out, we'll go get them and let's have this conversation. And then as uncomfortable as it can be, it becomes more productive for all of us because we're having a conversation about what's really going on here. It's not coming from power of us as peers. We're not coming down on people as, well, you've done this rule, you're out of here. We get to know what's really going on in their environment. So I want to stop there for questions because I want to make sure we've got enough time. And I think 12 minutes could be enough time, but I'm not sure. Yes?
So as far as, that's one thing I love how the house respite program works. So let's take it out of that. How is parents and family can support an individual that has had that atmosphere, that has that, has had that opportunity to be in that situation and be themselves and be accepted? How can we as family members learn from that? I mean, where do we get that knowledge? How can we?
I don't think anybody realizes how tough it is to get that number that I've seen in the peer community and the provider community. I mean, I think my work with them, there's nothing that can put to it, seeing a loved one decimated by what we go through and not really having an ability to be able to break through it. So, and to go through it to be conscious and aware of the agony and trying to offer the support constantly. And still, the support only was read only by me as they're messing with me, they're trying to destroy me. I cannot trust these people, they're after me. I don't have an answer. I think the best that my family did for me was to just completely offer love, and that's it. I mean, it was, and that's the thing that I've seen the most success from people is their family stuck by them. No matter what, their family stuck by them. It's not the most success. It's people that tend to reunite with their families. The families offered love unconditionally over and over and over again, and I've seen it time and again in Santa Cruz, and I've seen it not happen. So it's I think that ultimately it goes back to just being present with people over the course of 10, 15 years, and it's a matter of luck for as far as I can tell. That's the best I can think of. That's the only way that I can rationalize it.
This is kind of a personal question. Are you still on SSI? And if you are and you're working as manager, do you get paid for that, or how do you keep your SSI while you're doing such a good job? Like my son is doing a similar thing in LA. It's Hollywood activism, Hollywood heritage stuff. And he works very hard with the planning commission at LA, the city hall, and developers and contractors. But he's afraid to tell a psychiatrist that he does this. He acts like he plays dumb because he doesn't want to lose his SSI. But he doesn't get paid for what he does. But, you know.
If he doesn't get paid, he doesn't lose his societal.
Well, they think he can work because, I mean, he writes these fantastic proposals. He's a little summer camp. Well, you can work and make money if you can do that.
So I think that, just that I can tackle that in two parts, and is that no longer on Social Security. I got off Social Security about 2 years ago, officially out of their system completely 2 years ago. I was on a nine-month trial work period for a while, and then I was on an extended graduated period. I did the 3 years, and then the 2 years, and now I am not on the program anymore. But because of if my symptoms ever come back, I have a short circuit route for people who go through what I go through. So if I collapse, there is a security benefit there waiting for me. So that said, that actually work it's been what has sustained me. It actually doesn't serve. I'm not worried about a breakdown now because I've got work to do. I can't.
He has work to do. But if he loses, if he gets money for it, then he loses his SSI and his Medicare.
Yeah.
That costs him.
Medicare? No, I think you can keep Medicare for 7 years or something. But again, it goes back to when he's ready, he can actually he'll be able. It could be he's doing work now, right? He's doing the work that he can do. He's keeping it. So yeah, I'm going to be careful not to say. I'm going to be careful not to say don't tell the system because the system will chew it up. And so I don't want to say that because I don't necessarily believe that. they have their mechanisms in place for when people start doing well. So I'm not going to tell them to report it or anything like that, but I think that I can speak to that it sounds like he is working essentially, and he's gaining the skills, the belief in himself that he can do it. So maybe at some point he will be willing to have that conversation and go back to work. But when he's ready. But medical benefits is key. You gotta have to have medical benefits, and that's when I got medical benefits through my company now. Yeah, I'm off Section 8 now too, so that was the only way I could move to Santa Cruz was Section 8, and so I'm all about that.
Special 5,000 something of it.
Maybe.
Let's see. Yes.
I have a question. I have a level in Story Peer and I've seen kind of like you like the people are against and like instructing like the analytics, and so he like even someone who's trying to do this to me, and like I'll tell him no, but then I go back because he seems like he's so alone, and so I'm wondering what you think is helpful to talk to someone when they're like no one believes them, or what do you think is helpful for someone not to say as a someone who cares?
I hear you. It hurts to hear because I remember. I can feel what it was like. I remember how anything anybody said to me would get distorted, and I think they were telling me, they were verifying that it was going to happen regardless. So I was just talking to somebody when I was up in Portland, and she was saying that she thinks she's being followed. What I said was, you're worth being followed. It's you're some. Of course, it's worthwhile that you're worth it. So it's, of course you can think it whether it's true or not, is what I kind of said to her. May or may not be true. But I think that taking the experience, they found, I don't say they because I don't know who they are necessarily when I speak about them, but some I've heard from people that, and from my own training, invalidating the experience can do harm. It doesn't necessarily do good. So how to find a way, and I can't say exactly how, but how would you find a way to be able to honor his experience and to name it with words that this is actually happening in some way for him. And this is just what I'm wrestling out with. This is how I've had to do it when I'm talking to people is, how do you both honor the whole space? So the way that I had to wrestle with it is ambiguity. I had to actually say to myself, and this is what I say to people, is I had to learn that it could be happening, they could be out to get me, but I also had to be willing to hold space that they might not be out to get me. And that's what I kind of tell people also, and that can be helpful, and it's been useful. And when I say that, when I ask people, can you just hold a little room that it could be true, that it could be possible, and that it could not be possible. So, and that kind of helps people to step away from it a little bit. It doesn't become as overwhelming. It's not as present because one, you're saying, okay, maybe it's true, and then what do you do about that, and how do you work through that, and what's next? And so that it's not just that it's true in the story or it's false in the story. There's also the question of what is he really asking you? That's a bigger question because he may not have the answer. But what is it that he's by saying they're out to get me? And I've heard that a lot, and I've said it a lot. So then another way to validate it is to say, well, yeah, of course you think that. We've got cameras going up everywhere. We've got the internet where we're being monitored on the internet. We've got all of these things, and so our society is creating. So how much truth is what we go through then at that point? Are we really naming the fact that, yeah, they're coming out to get me? Everybody wants me. They're trying to destroy me. When cameras are going up, laws are getting made, the way that we're talking about mental illness, the way that in the mass media, it's like, so these are some of the things that could be at play, but and so how can you, and that's one way that I validate it is by naming, of course, it could very well be out to get us, what they're doing. So that's a way that I wrestle with it a little bit, and it's helped me, and it's helped the people that I work with to see it in that way.
I was just gonna ask, is it helpful for, the person hearing that, just to try to acknowledge what you're feeling, that, maybe you're scared and that it's safe here and you're okay, maybe, or whatever? Is that helpful?
I think anything that helps is helpful. I think that anything you find that works is good, that brings comfort is good. So, I think that has been helpful at times when I'm receptive to it. If I'm not receptive to it, it's not particularly good, but most times it can be. But I think that it comes then from the presence that you're embodying, that are you coming from that heart space saying you're in the same place, I'm here with you, and also naming the fear that you feel. I'm really scared right now. It really hurts me to see you suffering like this, so that people can see how you're being impacted as a person by your loved one. And then it becomes like, then that's where a connection can be made, because you're expressing your own emotions, your own feelings. It's not just about their emotions and feelings. And then you find that shared reality, consensus reality. We're both scared. We both want the best of this situation, whatever we want to create. So I think it goes back to that as well. How do we create a shared common ground that we can both work from? That tends to be another way. Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to respond or react to the question about, working while you're getting benefits from Social Security or whatever. But I think people can volunteer, isn't it, without an impact to their Social Security. So maybe if it's a context is a voluntary type of situation, maybe it's not going to be looked at like a job, in other words. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know, I think he's so effective with what he does. I mean, speaking in front of the city council, and having lunch with all these contractors.
But if he looks at it, but if he does it as a volunteer, then
Yeah.
I think he can do that. Go ahead, Barb.
The problem with that is Social Security periodically reviews
He's having a
your
review
skill
of 2 days.
levels.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just guessing myself, so I don't know.
What was the peer counseling you said you got training in?
Intentional peer support. Intentional peer support.
Intentional peer support. So then might that be helpful for families also?
If they're actually starting to branch out and to train families as well. Yes. Yeah. So I think that I can give you the information to get to them, to get to the trainers. It's a training like any other. It's an expensive training, but they have it all throughout town at various times. So it is possible to get training for families now. They're starting to branch out that way. So yeah. And we also get trained in mindfulness because we're connected to Encompass, and we also get motivational interviewing, which is another good form of communication, and trauma-informed care as well. So we get a number of trainings with Encompass. We're almost out of time. We are out of time. Are there any last questions? We'll stop here.
Thank you, Adrian. Stick around if anybody wants to talk to you?
I'll be at that.
Okay, all right. All right, well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month, November, and then we're going to meeting in December, so. And we have our holiday drive, where we're starting to, I can't believe it's. Okay.